Hello, my name is Bosco Popovic. I'm energy healing coach and a teacher. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the contributors that are actually making you actually feel a consistent negativity or overwhelming dwelling in uncontrolled negative emotions. In order to understand this better, because everything in the videos that have been produced so far is been linked, I would strongly suggest that you look into the videos in which I have extensively talked about the origins of stress and the as well as the negative thinking, because those are the two stepping stones which are directly leading onto you experiencing uncontrolled negative emotions that dwell into the continuous negative states. And for a particular reason, when there is nothing in your immediate environment that would suggest that there something like that is appropriate and fully justified. So what I mean with that is, unless you feel that you're a true victim of circumstances in which you have no ability in this moment or any moment, for argument's sake, to do something to get yourself out of the situation you're in, i.e., you have restricted ability to do something about it. For instance, like you have been caught imprisoned, or you have actually been stripped of all your ability to do something about it, and you feel strongly that you have been done unfairly, and yet at the same time you have any tools within your disposal to correct your current situation, and as a consequence of that, you're now feeling extreme levels of, how can I say, the anger, which has not been properly vented and which has now hit on your weak side. That's now flipped on its head, and it's now become and actually is now showing you that for some reason you are feeling as a victim, or whatever the circumstances might be. It's difficult for me to find a relevant, unless it's home abuse or bullying or things like that, which are very crude, and I don't want to talk about these things, but I'm only using them as examples. So any situations in which you seem unable to do anything about it to correct your position and your self-perception with regards to how you've actually handled it and how you have actually controlled the things outside of yourself or in your physical reality. And as that is the case, that has now reflected back onto you to tell you that you're either incompetent or you're weak, or there is something there that you're not doing, that you think that you can do, but for some reason you're not doing, and that is causing you mental, how can I say, a mental disagreement or annoyance, which has flipped together with the anger, which is now flipped on its head, and now you are seeing yourself as unjustified victim, which adds further salt onto the injury, and it's causing you even more pain. Now, these are the so-called justified situations in which you can say, due to this particular circumstance, I'm feeling in this way, and you can eloquently explain your inner disagreement that you have regarding the position for which you observed the event and how it actually affected you in a way that it did. But because you cannot either articulate, you cannot do nothing about it to vent this thing out of you, or even to resolve the situation that you perceive as either threatening or annoying or whatever it might be, in a positive way, or the way that you'll be satisfied that it's been dealt with correctly, and now you can move on to the next thing in your life. You can now say, this is justified experience of dwelling into negative emotions. Oh, I forgot as well, love issues, family issues, interpersonal relationships, work-related issues, and so on and so forth. I'm going into that, those are just examples. The objective of this video is not that. So I'm sorry if I've taken your time for something that maybe you didn't want to listen, but let's now get to the objective of the video. It is irrational and continuous dwelling in negative emotions. Right, so the key cause of that, and I have to remind you to go back into my previous videos in which I have extensively talked about the origins of stress, negative thinking, because I said earlier, they are the stepping stones. If those things have not been detected earlier in your emotional downgrading that was starting to go on its own without you, first of all, noticing that something is not right within your own cognitive sphere, through the checking your own subconscious sphere on how you feel from within, because you are overwhelmed with what is going on in your external world. You are going, as a consequence, to allow these steps to build up. And if this has not been addressed earlier, either at a stress level or at a negative thinking level, it will now escalate to become a negative emotional experience, which again is not being, if that is not being addressed as well, and it being only accepted as such and not being actually dealt with correctly, it will inevitably lead to negative moods. Now this is now a more serious, or the next level up in your psychological grading of self-neglect, because any form of negativity starting from stress comes from your inability to find a solution in a moment, deal with it, put it to bed, and move on to the next thing in your life. When you start to break things down, you always come down to the small pieces, and the small pieces are little unresolved issues in your life, which then start to get bigger because you're building the different ones on, different ones on, and it's like how you build a house, well, one brick at a time. So at some point you are going to create the walls. And this is what you are doing. You're actually creating the walls between your own physical reality and between your own inner world. Meaning when you have a wall between them, there's a less understanding and less precipitation of what is actually going on outside and what you can actually do from within yourself to position yourself correctly in your environment, to deal emotionally and with authority, whatever it is you are actually being presented with at that particular moment in time. purely by speculation. And by what I mean by that is by you half doing jobs, meaning, okay, this is a particular situation. If I do this, this, and that, hopefully this is going to go, or the problem is going to be resolved, without ensuring that after all the steps you have taken to mend the problem has effectively gone. You have now tried to move on. Of course, you now get into the next one, but you did not resolve the previous one. As it's not being resolved, it's then going to start nudging again and start catching up with you again. But the problem is you're now dealing with something entirely different that again requires your full emotional, cognitive, and even spiritual focus through your feelings, how to resolve this. As you continue, and then inability to resolve this one here because you're already pushed by the previous one, you have a less ability to deal with this one here. And then because you need to move on to the next one because life is continuous, life carries on, it doesn't stop in the moment. It is infinity of the moments. That's what life is all about. So when you do not deal with situations in the moment and you allow them to be half done or not done at all, or partially left over, whatever it might be, that is inevitably going to catch up with you sooner or later. But the more of these problems you leave behind you without them being completely resolved, they are going to, like a train, you're going to build the different wagons, whatever it is, or the whatever you call them, the coaches, whatever they are, and you are now be slowing down in your ability to deal with whatever is coming onto you on a daily basis. That is the point where the stress comes. With that comes the negative thinking, which is now all that pressure that comes from the outside starts to create the inner resistance, which is reflected in negative thinking. And what the negative thinking does immediately is it actually evokes the invisible threat to your emotional response. And your emotional response in a majority of cases, at least 95% of them, if not more, reflect the state of your thoughts. So, if you already have negative perceptions of things that is going on, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that, whatever. All this negative, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want to hear this, blah, 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 I don't like this person, I like that, what have you. It will inevitably draw your emotional response. And how it works. The whole creation is made of two simple things: electricity and magnetism. Those are the two major forces in creation. So, for the simplicity's sake, the nature of which we create is made of electrical discharge and magnetic resonance. The thoughts by the nature are electric, which means they're instant, they're powerful, they sting, and they move on. But what works in a continuity is magnetic force. So, if a certain spark of the thought has been thrown into the magnetic field more times than it should, it is a greater probability that it will be eventually caught and drawn into the magnetic field for it to be further nurtured and developed. And this is like another way of actually understanding the very complex relationship between the thoughts and the emotions. If you have a certain negative thought about something that flashes into your mind, what have you, once or twice and so on and so forth, it will cause a bit of a ripple, but it will not by great chance, unless of course it's something that's seriously like life-threatening situation that can actually cause you a very strong response, emotional response, that draws in that completely changes your inner energetic structure, landscape 100%. Because here we're talking about the biological existence. If it's something way, way lighter, that will definitely will not be taken into consideration. However, if that same thing gets repeated over and over and over again, like I don't like this person, I don't like this, I don't like whatever, do this, and I don't like my boss, and all this and all that, and every day you keep repeating the same thing like a mantra, guess what? That repetition will eventually start to build its own energetic form within the magnetic field that will be then drawn into the field, from which you will then start to nurture it and make that the point which will actually start to influence your entire subconscious dwelling, as well as later your conscious reflection or the understanding of the world. So this is the point that really everyone needs to be very, very careful when it comes to misjudging the importance of negative thinking, because negative thinking, as explained in my previous videos, inevitably, when it's really been consistent, will eventually start to get accepted, nurtured, and adopted. And when it gets adopted, now there are different stages in that as well. But the first stage of adoption is when you start to feel from within yourself negative vibes. You know something is not right. You don't know what it is. You sit in the room, we talked about it being in the moment, very, very important. But something inside you is not right. And you don't know where it is. Reason for that is because those thoughts are not coming out so frequently. They can be maybe in infrequent, how can I say, in infrequent ways or patterns, maybe depending on the situations you're facing on a daily basis. But nevertheless, they do come. And because they do come, they become adopted, as I explained through the process before, and now they are living. They're there. So whatever it is that you're perceiving that you need to do, and you don't really feel like you want to do that, what you already have inside you is now going to come out. This is the first thing that you need to be very, very careful when you start to experience the so-called irrational negativity, which has no particular relevance to anything that is happening in your external reality. Now, here comes even more trickier point. If you bypass this point and you let it go and you let this develop and go to the next stage, it will start to create something that's called the freezing moment. You will start to feel like a little bit heavier, a little bit kind of like you're waking up in the morning, you have a little bit of, I don't know, you need to go to work or something, you're not getting on with your friends or with your colleagues at work or with your boss or whatever it might be. Let's just an example. Or you don't like commuting or whatever it might be. You will feel in your stomach, and also you'll feel in your chest stiffness, something that is really difficult. And then I used to feel in my left arm, like when you have this warning of a heart attack. It wasn't a heart attack, it was just that I was so full of negativity that it actually completely overtook the left side of my body and was literally giving me like tinglings in my left hand, and things that was very unpleasant. And the last thing that goes and evolves now to further is when that becomes constant feature in your life, regardless of whether you're going to work or you're having your chill day or your holiday or whatever. This is now becoming more or less chronic. What it means chronic, it means that it's been imprinted into your cells, that you are now becoming naturally, you actually program yourself to be negative. And this is the something that you do not want to get yourself in, because any little spark of something that you disagree, you don't like, is going to annoy you, is going to actually get you out of your balance, out of your safety zone, and you will see a threat, even though there's no threat there. But for whatever reason, you will feel threatened. That is because you are now actually become filled in with negativity that is taking you from within and is wrestling you, and you have no ability to control that totally. This is the point where you're actually becoming chronically dissatisfied, negative, and so forth. You know what I'm trying to say if you're experiencing this particular condition. And this is the becoming your mood. Let's just say, oh, this person is grumpy and all of that. It's purely because that person has allowed, unfortunately, him or herself, through the continuous self-neglect on many life's occasions, to deal with a lot of things that they should have done and dealt with correctly, but unfortunately they didn't, and allowed all that to create this wall from which they're unable to properly judge what is going on outside and what and how they need to deal with that internally in order to be able to position themselves in the best way to enjoy the life and to feel empowered. It's opposite. They're feeling disempowered. And because they constantly feel that they are being shorthanded for whatever reason they might feel that, this negative behavior is now coming out because they have to release the steam. And this is where the whole process of building the negative energy into yourself, and you build it. All that we're talking about here is a building a negative energy and basically compressing it in your physical body or within your inner bioenergy field. So what is the solution that you may be asking for? And the solution that I'm always preaching to all my clients, people I'm working with, is that you have to work on yourself on a daily basis. Not for very long, 5 to 10 minutes, if longer it's excellent, in order to, what I call, is release the negative energy out of your bioenergy field. And then at the same time, because when you release the energy, you need to replenish the same thing back. Through the process of specific body movement, grounding, body movement, and breathing, and being in the present moment. I call it 4 pillars. You're now recharging the positive energy back into your bioenergy field. And in this way, you're actually behaving same as if you imagine a large ship cruising on the ocean, and suddenly it's get hit by something, and it's causing a massive rupture in the hull of the ship. And because of that, the water starts to penetrate now into the hull. So in order for the ship not to sink, it has to start pumping the water out, while at the same time is looking at where is the nearest port in which it can go to actually mend and repair the damage, so it can continue its own travel wherever it's going. So this is basically what it is in the first instance. You need to, first of all, you need to become aware that something is not right, first of all. Second thing is, when you do that, is you need to now then do something about it. And that is to start the process of releasing the negative energy and recharge the positive energy back into your own bioenergy field. Two very important things. In the next video that I'm going to publish after this one here, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that you can do to start to remove the negative thoughts. To remove the negative emotions and to deal with them effectively, so that you can start correcting the way how you actually perceive yourself in your physical reality. So as far as this video is concerned, I will stop here, and in my next video I'm going to actually take it to the next level and provide you with more information on now how you can actually start to correct at the basic level this particular state, in order for you to start to normalize your thinking, first of all your stress levels, your thinking, and of course to get back into your emotional stability. Until next video, I wish you all the best and see you then.